Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Mindy Eggen for Lawn Fawn, and in today's video I'll be showing you how I created this card using the new Magic Iris Snow Globe add-on. I'm going to start off my card by getting some Copic coloring done. So I have here stamped out images from Ready Set Snow, snow globe scenes, and winter skies, starting with my trees. And I'm going to be using the colors G29, G07, and YG06. And as usual, I will have all of my colors listed at the top of the screen. So the darkest color, you could see I flipped my card upside down, which is how I like to color trees. And I just flicked the darker color first and then blended out with my medium and finished off with the lighter color. Now, if you wanted to add a little bit more dimension or character, you could go back in with the G29 just to deepen that shadow area up if you wanted. I left it as is. And I did the same thing for this tree that is from the snow globe scenes. I'm going to use this same color combination on the scarf of this snowman. Now, because the snowman is facing to the right, I'm going to have the darkest area on the left. For my other snowman, I'm going to keep with some traditional colors, and I'm going to color this one in reds. So I have RV29, RV14, and RV13. This one I'm having the darkest area be on the right-hand side. Since the snowman is facing to the left, that's where I'm envisioning that the light source is coming from. Then I added just a little bit of orange for the noses. I just literally grabbed right out of my bin. I didn't even really pay attention. I just wanted a nice light orange. And same thing for all the different colors on the tree. I just kind of grabbed a rainbow of colors. Now for the snowmen, I'm going to do these in some really, really light blues. I want to have some shadow to them, but not a lot. So I'm using B00 and B000, and I am leaving a lot of it white. And then I'll finish up with my tree trunks using the E37 and E34. Once I have all of my images colored in, I'm going to take the coordinating dies to each of them, line them up, hold them in place with some post-it tape or low-tack tape, and then run this through my die cutting machine. These are cut, I will put them off on the side and work on my Magic Iris. I went ahead and die cut my items off screen. So I have the 3 circles out of white cardstock, one of which has those slots. Then I have my 3 hot dog shapes out of the white cardstock, and I also cut out those 3 brackets. I have my tab, and now here is the snow globe add-on that I die cut from white cardstock as well. I want to do a base, and I'm going to do that out of the woodgrain cardstock, so I'm only lining up the bottom half of this die and running that through the die cut machine. And I do like to hold it in place because I want to make sure my wood grain is in the right direction. And I'm going to cut the edges of that base out of some of the gold metallic cardstock. Now I will work on my ink blending. So I'm using spun sugar, picked raspberry, wilted violet, and black soot distress oxide inks. I did a card almost exactly to this. I will show you at the end. And I did it in blues, but I thought I would just change this up a little bit and show you another version. And this is the pink and purples version. I'm starting off with the lightest color in the very middle. And I think that really draws attention to the center of the snow globe if you have the lightest color in the middle and the darkest colors on the outside. You can totally do whatever you want with your snow globes. I just really loved this look with the lightest color in the center. Then I'm following that up with the picked raspberry, going all the way around that. The picked raspberry does get a little bit lost since it is kind of a small space. And then I follow that up with the wilted violet, bringing that from the outside edge in. And my spun sugar isn't as light as I had hoped it would be. I think I still had some worn lipstick on there, but it still works. It's still lighter, so that's good. And then I'm topping this off with the black soot, and that's what's really going to draw your eye to this, is that deeper color around the edge, is that black soot. Then I'm going to take those 3 hot dog shapes And I'm also going to ink blend those. Since this is going to be our window that kind of opens up, I want to make sure this matches what I ink blended on my snow globe. So this is the spun sugar. I'm doing the entire piece in the spun sugar. After those are ink blended, we can start the assembly of the magic iris. So I'm taking the circle I die cut that has those notches cut out of it. I'm going to slide those hot dog pieces in and line them up around that magic iris piece. So I'll continue that for each one, kind of slide that tab in and form that circle. On each end of these hot dog pieces is that little X, and I'm going to take these small glue dots. These are the 3/16 of an inch, and I'm going to place that glue dot directly over those X's. So I will do that for each one of the X's, just going around that circle. You'll need 3 of them. And once we have these in place, we are going to bring in one of our other circles that I had die cut. So this is just a plain circle piece from the Magic Iris die. And I'm going to place that circle directly over the top of this. I want to make sure all of my pieces are lined up perfectly. And then I can just place this right on top. Then I'm going to flip this over. And on those notches that are kind of embossed into that backside, I'm going to take some tape runner and just go a straight line to the other side of the circle. And this is where we will attach our brackets. The brackets are shaped to fit around that inner circle part. So I will line each one around there. Now I will flip this back over to the front. I have my tab here that I'm going to attach some adhesive to. I'm going to form a V at just one of those brackets that we had attached. And then I can bring in that third circle, and I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to those brackets. I will place that third circle on top, and then I can close up my brackets. So I'm just going to gently fold these over. We don't want them too tight, otherwise your magic iris won't move. So I'm going to gently fold them over, and they're not going to go all the way to the center. So after I have those folded in, I will give this a test run. It's closing perfectly and it's moving great. So now I can move on to the next step, which is adding my snow globe piece. So I'm adding adhesive all around the top of this, and I'm going to attach my snow globe right on top. Now, when I had originally cut this snow globe from white cardstock, I had those two like gleam marks. I saved those, and I'm going to inlay them back onto my card because underneath I either have adhesive or you can see one of the brackets. So I'm going to add that right back on top, and you could add any type of glimmer pen to them to give it a little bit of sparkle if you wanted. Now for the base, I'm going to bring in that wood grain piece, and I'm going to trim right along the top edge of that. And I want to add a little bit of dimension to this. So I'm going to bring in some Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink and a blending brush, and I'm just going to blend in from each side, kind of starting off dark and then just fading off a little bit to the center. Then I'm going to take my tape runner, I'm going to add a little bit of tape to the back of this, and I'm going to attach it right to my snow globe piece. And after that's adhered, I can bring in that top and bottom portion that I die cut out of the metallic gold cardstock. So I'm using some liquid glue and my tweezers to align those. You'll notice one is bigger than the other, so if it doesn't seem to fit quite right, you want to make sure you're placing it on the right one. Now our snow globe is done, and we will move on to working on the background. And I'm going to use the same colors that I used for the snow globe. So just taking a piece of white cardstock, I'm doing spun sugar, the picked raspberry, the wilted violet, and the black soot distress oxide ink. I'm adding these inks to the cardstock with some blender brushes. You can use whatever applicator tool that you have. And notice I didn't go all the way down when I started with that spun sugar because that's going to be covered up by a snowdrift that I'm going to add later on. So here is the wilted violet. And I will bring in my previous colors to kind of help blend that. A lot of it's going to get covered up, but I think it really does add a lot to the card to have this cool background. And then topped off with the black soot. Now I am in love with the Snowflake Trio stencil. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to spray some pixie spray on it. You don't need to spray a lot, and you don't want to be real close, and you want to let it sit for about a minute. You want it to just be tacky. I want to make sure that those insides of the snowflakes stay down. And then I'm taking some of the Yeti pigment ink from Lawn Fawn. I had gotten asked a lot of questions how I had did this on my original card, and this is what I had done. So I tapped off a lot of that pigment ink off on the side, and I'm taking a blending brush and just lightly going over that area. You don't need a lot because it is a pigment ink. It is very thick, and it does take a little bit longer to dry. So by tapping off a lot of that or wiping on a paper towel, you can come in with a really soft look, and then making sure I'm going both directions with my brush to make sure I'm spreading that ink out throughout this snowflake stencil. Now, when I reveal this, there are a couple spots that had a little bit more buildup of the pigment ink than in other areas, but it will dry. So once that is done and I remove the stencil, I'm going to give this just a minute or so to dry. And then I'm going to take some clean water and I am going to spritz my background. This is just one of my favorite things to do with the Distress Oxides or Distress inks. And then I'm going to pick up that excess water with a paper towel. So you can do this as little or as much as you want to your background. Now to add just a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to bring in the liquid Stardust, adding a couple drops to my mat. Spritzing down some water, I'll mix the two together and then flick this over my entire background. Once that's done, you can either just set this off on the side for a few minutes to dry, or you can speed it up with your heat tool. Then I'm going to take the stitched hillside border and I'm going to die cut out a snowy hill from the Pixie Dust glitter cardstock. And then I can start working on the assembly of my card. So I trimmed down my panel to 4 by 5¼ inches, and I'm going to add my snowy hill to the bottom of that. Just bringing in my snow globe, making sure that it fits. I do have a piece of fog cardstock here that's cut to 4¼ by 5 inches, and I die cut out, or I trimmed out a piece of white cardstock that is just a little bit bigger than my ink blended panel. So I'm adding that to that white cardstock. So this is going to give me just a little bit of a white edge. Now after I have that, I can start working on the inside part of my magic iris. So I added some adhesive to my tree that I had die cut out. This is from the snow globe scenes. And I made sure to kind of put my magic iris on there, line up about where I want that to go, and then I kind of tucked it in. So I didn't push down right away until I knew for sure that that is where I wanted it to go. Now I need to pop this up just a little bit, so I'm adding foam squares to the brackets. And I'm also going to add the foam squares to the bottom or the base of my snow globe, and I doubled up the foam squares on that base. Since our magic iris has a few layers to it, I want to make sure that my dimension is kind of even throughout the entire card. And then just lining that back up over my image that I had placed on the front of the card. And I can push that down. Once I have that adhered to the front of the card, I'll give this kind of a little test run, make sure that everything is working. And I could start putting on my images that I had cut up earlier. So I do put a lot of these images onto the card with the tape runner. And when you assemble them onto the front of your snow globe, just make sure that none of that adhesive is touching the center of your snow globe, because you don't want it to get stuck. You want to make sure that you can still move everything around. And I did add some foam squares to the back of my snowman to pop them up. And everything works great. Now a sentiment I had stamped out on fog cardstock with the embossing ink and heat embossed it with gold embossing powder. Then I just attached that onto my snow globe with foam squares. Then we can test this out and everything is moving, nothing is sticking, and we open up this snow globe to see that cute little decorated Christmas tree in the center. Now I'm going to give you a look at a card I created for Inspiration Week, and this has got the blue background to it. I love both of these. The colors and the different scenes you can do with this are just endless, and I absolutely love this snow globe add-on. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.